Welcome to the virtual college exploration for all of North and South Carolina students, sponsored by the Carolinas Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers and StriveScan. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the full schedule at CACRAO.org. The presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website, CACRAO.org, CACRAO.org. I'd now like to turn it over to our presenters.
All right, thank you all so much for joining us today for this session about telling your story, being a self-advocate. The goal of this session is to introduce you to the skills needed to help advocate yourself for the best college opportunity for you. My name is Derek Doss. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions at Coastal Carolina University, and I've been at admissions for 11 years now and learned quite a bit about this topic over this time. And with me, I also have some very experienced folks who are in the field, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Allyson Brown, Associate Dean of Admissions for Diversity and Inclusion at Furman University.
Hey everybody, my name is Paul Abella. I'm the coordinator for in-state recruitment at the University of South Carolina, and I've been working in higher ed for about 6 years now.
Perfect. So we got a great group here with us to kind of cover this topic. But today what we believe is that we have a great introduction to you to begin working on telling your story. And we think that's really important this year. I'll be discussing some first steps about where to start, building the right relationships, and how to make contact. Paul will then discuss about involvement, your resume, and other important pieces to include. Then Allyson will wrap up with important considerations for your essays. We'll be monitoring the chat throughout, the Q&A that's there, so please feel free to utilize that as we go through. Any questions specific to universities we'll answer in that Q&A or at the end if time permits. We're going to focus our Q&A efforts on directly to the topic we're talking about. So we'll try to make sure to leave a time at the end for that. I believe, and we'll go ahead and get started. If you notice, our backgrounds kind of give a little bit of information about what we're doing, and what I'm talking about really has a lot to do with building that relationship. I believe a great starting point is building a relationship with your admissions counselor. Colleges and universities have admissions counselors that are dedicated to being your advocate in considering their college. Now, when I say they're your advocate, their advice on this process is important to listen to and will be different for each of you, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. How do you build this relationship? I think a good way to go about this is to start with a well-crafted email addressed to your admissions counselor. This email would include the basics like a greeting or a salutation. It's not a text, but the body of your email needs to be specific and direct. It needs to show that you're serious. You've thought about this. You've thought through it. You have a purpose for your email. While also you can feel free to show your personality a little bit. You want to address some things, and I'll give you an example of an email that I would write. Dear Miss Brown, this is Derek Doss, a senior at Carolina Forest High School in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I've heard great things about Furman University, and I'm interested in attending your university and applying. I'd like to find some time to connect with you so I can introduce myself and discuss the opportunity of attending Furman University. I haven't decided on a major yet, but I am interested in business and music. I've been involved in FBLA and marching band and really enjoyed those. I look forward to connecting with you. I'm able to connect by phone or Zoom. Thanks, Derek. Now you can tailor this specifically to you, but it lets your admissions counselor know kind of what you may want to talk about a little bit about who you are and where you're from, and creates the opportunity for you to schedule a time to meet with them. That way it allows enough time to have the conversation versus just, taking a random time to call. So after you have that email, you hear back from your admissions counselor, now what? What do you say when you finally connect with your admissions counselor? First, we know it can be awkward. You can expect it. It usually is the first time as you're getting used to it. So just accept it and move on from it. Don't worry about awkward moments. They're going to happen. So try not to stress too much about the things in those awkward moments, as you may talk over each other or you may not know the next thing to say. But some great ways to avoid awkward moments is to make sure that you're prepared for this conversation. And this is what we're talking about in building this relationship and being a self-advocate, and which is a really great skill that you're going to enjoy learning more about as you go through life. But this really helps you build the relationship and learn how to talk about yourself. So being prepared. First, I say have your resume and involvement together, and Peter Paul is going to help teach you a little bit about how to do that. Have your essay together, so you're going to learn a little bit about that from Allyson. The important reason to have your essay is if you've worked on your essay prior to, you're already going to have worked on how you want to say things and working out the right sentence structure for explaining some different things. Do some research on the college or university and know what you like and what you want to know more about. Show that you've taken some initiative to read through some of the basics, like the averages as far as GPA, SAT, and those types of things. Be prepared to talk about your strengths, what you've done well in high school and in your community. But be even more prepared to talk about your weaknesses or shortcomings. Many times we're ready to talk about what we're really good at, what we're passionate about, what we enjoy, but we're not always ready to identify what we don't do well, where we may struggle, and we don't always know how to talk about it. So being prepared. So for example, if you aren't a good test taker, discuss it. Share what you've learned from it and how you've worked on it to improve. If you started out poorly with your grades, but have improved well, talk about it. Talk about what you learned and how you were able to overcome and achieve that. Your grades and the way that they reflect on your transcript tell a story about your academic career in high school, and sometimes more. Sometimes there are moments in your high school career that might need some explanation. Maybe you got a concussion your junior year and your grades slipped because you had to miss classes and you had a hard time catching up. Maybe your parents divorced during your sophomore year and you couldn't focus, had a really bad year, but bounced back your junior year and improved. Maybe you're the oldest and had to work a lot to help either support your family, or maybe you had to give extra effort to watch your younger siblings. These things happen and they are reality, and we know that. And that's why we talk about being your advocate, kind of being on your team to work with you about that process. And this is part of why we're having this session. But these types of things aren't something that you should shy away from, because otherwise we have to draw our own conclusions about why. You want to tell your story. You want to be your own advocate and make sure that we know the real you without having to assume in those areas. Ask questions about things that are important to you. Make a list. Maybe it's rankings. Maybe you're interested in what type of students is the university or college looking for academically or regarding involvement. It may be about financial aid, scholarships, merit awards, those types of things. And lastly, ask advice on what you need to do to get the most out of your opportunity. There could be some important things that your admissions counselor is aware of that they might be able to share with you. Are there any important deadlines that I need to be aware of that aren't on the main website? Are there any scholarships that you might think are a good fit for me to look for? Is there anything I should do during my senior year to improve my chances and my opportunity? Is there anything specific I should provide to help with my chances to be admitted? And these are all important things to help you make the most out of this opportunity. Being a self-advocate and learning to build a relationship is they are both great skills to learn for the rest of your life. You will always be your best advocate as you work and learn about yourself. You learn how to evaluate yourself and share what you've learned. It should also help you realize areas that you do well and areas that you need to improve. Honesty goes a long way in life. And the earlier we are honest with ourselves, the earlier we can work to become the best version of who we are. What I've shared in the beginning of the relationship is about the beginning of building that relationship. Growing it depends on you and your follow-up. You'll want to take what you learn from your conversation and make sure that you take the necessary steps in completing the tasks and growing that relationship. If your counselor says to apply by November 1st, then apply by November 1st. And continue to grow the relationship by following up with them to let them know, hey, I wanted to send you a quick email and let you know I did submit my application prior to the November 1st deadline, and I'm working to get everything completed. And then continue to follow up at each opportunity that they may have shared with you. With that being said, I want to pause for a moment to see if we have any questions that have come through that I need to answer on here. And let me take a look. I know it looks like it was answered in the chat. And the question is it too early for a junior to answer or to reach out to an admissions counselor? I would say no. A lot of students do visit for the first time during their junior year. So I think it's okay to reach out early, but realize you're going to have a pretty general conversation based on when in your junior year. If you're a junior now, you can imagine, you still have a lot of work that's going to take place over this next year. So right now might just be kind of getting some tips about what you need to prepare for in the coming year, things that you can do in your junior year to maximize. If you have this conversation close to the end of your junior year, you'll have a little bit more talking points, but you really want to hammer in on this conversation during your senior year when you have everything that the colleges would expect for you to bring to the table. So that's a great question. Well, I don't notice any other questions there, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Peter Paul from the University of South Carolina to talk with you about involvement.
All right, thank you, Derek. So now that you've done your research, got in contact with your admissions counselor, you want to help yourself stand out compared to all the other students. While grades and scores might give an insight of what you might learn while you're in school, it does not fully paint a picture of you as an individual person. That's where the involvement portion of your high school career comes into play. Now, what would qualify as involvement? This can be anywhere from sports, organized events, interests, work, or community service. Now, I know for some of you might be a little bit worried about this area. There's a possibility that you might not have too much involvement while you're in high school. You wonder, will that hinder your chances of getting admitted into college? The answer is no. We all know that students might have certain obligations in their life that they had to put forth from their very own wants and needs, and we fully understand that. So please let us know in that case whether you put it in your resume or an essay, which Allyson will talk a little bit about later. It's much better to have shown significant involvement in leadership and personal development in 2 or 3 activities rather than writing about 10 activities that you hardly were involved in because you spread yourself too thin. Now, do not just list all your activities on your college application. Make sure for each activity, you're going to want to write down the organization, a brief description of the organization, and what you did. Write down any leadership roles you had, as well as any achievements that happened. Feel free to go in depth and fully explain your involvement. Did you attend meetings? Did you help fundraise? Did you organize any activities? If you're in sports, were you a team captain? Did you make the all-district team? Do not sell yourself short. Now, you're going to want to list your activities from most important to least important. The best way to base this off is the amount of time you spent in that organization, whether you had a role played or by any accomplishments made. The main reason to list your activities from most important to least important is because some colleges, when you are applying to their university, there might be a limitation on how many activities you can put on their application. So make sure you put the ones that mean the most to you. Now, before you submit that application, make sure you have a teacher or a classmate proofread your activities, not just for grammar and punctuation, but to make sure you have not missed anything important that you might have been involved in. Remember, all students applying to college will have a GPA, but what will set yourself apart from that? Another tool that you can use to help you stand out during your admissions process is a resume. This gives you an opportunity to highlight all your involvement and accomplishments that you're not able to put on your application. If you're unable to participate in many activities, you can write a brief paragraph of other obligations you might have had. Now, resumes will vary from school to school. Some schools might give you the option to upload a resume, while others may not. You might even see some schools give you the option to upload a resume instead of filling out the involvement portion of their application. So definitely read carefully. While much of your information on the resume might be already on your application, it's still a good tool to have. Be sure to separate your involvement into different categories and list them in chronological order. Even if the colleges are not looking for you to submit a resume during their college process, it's helpful for you to have because you can eventually use it as a tool for job placement while you're in college or possibly getting an internship. Now that you've painted a picture for us, now you need someone to explain the meaning behind the picture. For some colleges, they might ask for 2 or 3 letters of recommendation from people who know you really well. Be mindful on who you select to write your letters of recommendations. You want someone who can shed light on things about you that grades and test scores cannot. Colleges want someone who can provide examples of your character, skills, and accomplishments. Read each of your college applications carefully to see if there are any specifics when it comes to letters of recommendations. Be mindful, not all schools will require you to have letters of recommendations, but there's a possibility that they might require them for special programs or scholarship opportunities. Generally, letters of recommendations should be from an academic teacher, sometimes in a specific subject, or a school counselor, maybe even both, while others might be more open and allow you to have references such as mentors, coaches, or even the manager at your school. At minimum, you're going to want to give your references at least a month before the deadline. The sooner, the better. The more time they have to write your letter of recommendation, the more thought that will go into it. Now, don't forget, you have to realize that many teachers are going to be writing a lot of letters of recommendations each year. Even if they know you real well, it's a good idea to take time with them and speak with them about your letters of recommendations. If you have a resume, give them a copy. It will be a great way for them to have a refresher on all your accomplishments, as well as any new updates in your life. Make sure your references know the deadlines for each of your colleges, since all colleges do not have the same deadlines. Definitely follow up with your references a minimum of 2 weeks before your letters of recommendations are due, just to make sure that your school has received them. Do not hesitate to contact your admissions counselor to check up on your file to see if they've already been received. Now, don't forget, once your whole college process is over and you have been admitted into the college of your choice and you have decided where you're going to go, don't forget about the people who wrote your letters of recommendations. I highly advise you to write them a thank you card. Let them know where you're going to be attending, and then also let them know that you really appreciate the support that you gave them. And right now, I'm going to see if there are any questions in relation to specifically this topic. So definitely, if you have any AP awards or if you've been in any extracurricular like that, You definitely want to put that on your resume, because the more information we have on a student, the more you stand out. Because of course, all students are going to apply. They might have their GPA. They might be giving test scores. You know, that's something that helps you stand out compared to other students. So to answer how long should your resume be, it's really up to you. I always suggest when you're dividing your resume, it should always usually just be one page. And you can divide up the different categories like your activities involvement. You know, did you have work, community service, and then put a portion that's specific just for education. And then also, like I said, you can write a brief paragraph to kind of explain a little bit about you as a person, maybe your goals, why you want to attend that university, or if there are any obstacles that you have gone through. If the school is allowing you to have an advisor of a club be a letter of recommendation, they would be a good person to have, because they could be able to see and actually tell the school like what your involvement is. Because sometimes, like I say, students, sometimes you sell yourself short, and by having somebody write a letter of recommendation in a specific area, it's a good way to back you up and show you like what your strengths, your weaknesses, and accomplishments were in that organization. When it comes to how long should a letter of recommendation be, it's really going to be depending on the school. Some schools, there might be a word count, so just be wary of that. And then a lot of people do ask, you know, should I use the same person to write my letters of recommendations? And that answer is yes. The reason why it's good to have only a few people is because then you don't have to keep worrying about other people and different deadlines. By having maybe two or just three people you constantly contact, you could just let them know, here are the different schools I'm applying to, here are the deadlines, and then let them know like what the differences are, if there's any special word count, or if there's like a certain format that they have to submit those letters or recommendations. So for how your teachers are going to submit letters of recommendations or your advisors, it's going to depend on the college. Sometimes on your college application, there'll actually be a section on there. Do you want to have someone send in a letter of recommendation? And a lot of times you're able to put your counselor or whoever is writing your letter of recommendation on your application, and then they'll receive notification from the university that you're going to be writing them a letter of recommendation and have to submit that to them. Other schools, they might just have you send your letter of recommendations directly to your admissions counselor, and then they could upload it to your file. All right, well, those are all the questions I see that we have. And now I'm gonna pass it over to Allyson to kind of explain you guys the essay portion.
Thank you, Peter Paul. So hello again. Good afternoon. My name is Allyson Brown with Furman University, and my portion of today's presentation centers around writing the essay and just giving you all some tips and some things to consider as you're looking forward to writing the oh so dreaded college essay. All of the information that you received so far is a great way to start building the different components of your application. Some of these may be required, some may be optional, so definitely take your time and read from front to back, top to bottom through the application before you actually start working on those to make sure that you're really presenting your best self and putting your best foot forward. When it comes to the basic functionality of a college essay, we are just looking for, that special ingredient. What is it that makes you you? What drives you? What are your current motivations? And then probably the hardest part is just conveying that in text form. written down. So there may not have been a lot of time for you all to reflect on how you're navigating your high school experience thus far, but I guarantee you, you are learning life lessons as you go through them, especially in our current state. So when you're looking to shape and form your essay, remember that the basic function is to share more about yourself with the college that's going to be reading your application. Sounds pretty simple, pretty basic. The importance of a college essay, especially if it's being asked or required of you, take it seriously, because contrary to popular belief, we actually read them. So please give yourself time to write the best essay in which you want to submit to a college. I wouldn't want anyone to be rushing through the application and just hurriedly write something in that essay box just because and hit submit and thinking that no one's going to read it. Well, actually we do. So that will give us some of those earlier indications as to your overall academic success in our classrooms. We are tasked with selecting students that can be successful in the classroom, and professors are anxiously awaiting that next incoming class of high achieving, high performing students. So all of the attention to detail when you're writing your essay and conveying your thoughts is going to come through in your college essay. And this is also a great time for you to highlight your writing skills. We're not expecting you to be scholars at this point or having conducted research, but this is the first indication as to the level of writing that you have and how that might be on par or exceeding our expectations for our respective institutions. As you are looking to shape your essay even more, really think about this as your first job application to maybe your dream job. And again, conceptually, you may not even have gotten that far in terms of thinking about what kind of job or career you want to have, but ultimately you're going to be submitting a job application with a variety of different components, very similar to the admissions process. So this is a great practice run for all of you to think about how you truly want to convey who you are and what you can bring to the table and bring to our different institutions, and highlight those qualities and those talents, okay? As we are looking to just further engage you all in terms of, writing the essay and putting forth your best effort, we want to give you a little bit of an opportunity to engage with us. I am bringing up the tail end of our presentation, so I want to give you a little bit of activity to make sure that you're all listening and you have eyes wide open to the information that we are giving to you today. So I want to do a little activity in which I hope all of you will participate in. There's quite a few of you. So what we're going to do is think about your favorite movie. Your favorite movie of all time. What I want you to do is think on that. We'll give you about 45 seconds, and you're just going to enter the movie title into the chat feature. And your 45 seconds starts now. Your favorite movie. There's some good ones coming in, some that I'm not too familiar with, but there we go. Lots of great movies. This is your most favorite movie of all time that you can watch over and over again. We'll have about 10 more seconds. Anyone else to throw in their favorite movie into that chat box? This is great. And that is going to be our 45 seconds. And so let me kind of explain to you why I wanted you to engage in that kind of activity to get started with. I wanted you to think about your most favorite movie and think about how you might share that movie with someone else. Maybe a new friend, and you're talking about TV shows, what to watch on Netflix, favorite movies, and you have this opportunity to share your favorite movie with a brand new person. Think about how you would share that story of what happens in the movie. They've never seen the movie before, so what do you include? Typically, it's going to be a beginning, a middle, and an end, maybe with some large highlights as to, what movie genre does it fit into. Okay, so some more of those general references are some of the things that you might include. I saw Peter Pan, Cinderella, depending on, what version is your favorite. Obviously I remember the classic versions of those. So you might, give the typical storybook presentation when sharing those movies. Now, I want you to take that same favorite movie. You can actually close your eyes for this one. Close your eyes. And when you're thinking about your favorite movie, pick out your favorite scene within that movie. I'll give you a few seconds to reflect and just think about everything in that scene that really makes it stand out for you. A few seconds to think about your favorite scene. I want you to put in some descriptive words in the chat box as to what makes that scene so special. So there's been probably 15 or so movies into the chat feature, but just go ahead and put in, how did it make you feel? You can put happy. Was it a thrilling car chase? What descriptors really make that one scene stand out that you would definitely incorporate in sharing that scene with someone that you've never met, brand new before, and you just are so excited to tell them about this particular scene? Go ahead and throw in some of those descriptive words, phrases. Let's see, remember the Titans. See, hopeful, character development. Those are awesome. Any more adjectives? Oh, the magical close bond in the movie. You guys are doing great. Beautiful moment, empathy, self-confidence, revolutionary, shocking. That's been an action film. Wonderful. So hopefully if you're anything like myself, my favorite movie of all time is Rocky IV, and it has to be the fourth one in the entire series if you're a Rocky fan. So even when I get excited of thinking about my favorite scene, you can feel yourself in that moment and how it made you feel. So I want you to harness that same energy when working on your college application. We're not asking you all to tell us the entire story of what you're writing about. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you think about a quick overview of maybe your life or your high school experience times 2000, they all seem to kind of run together. There's some certain themes there. But if you pick out one component, one item of that writing prompt that you were trying to address, go more deeply into that moment, and that's going to be the makings of a great essay. So hopefully that little exercise will help you understand how to not only stand out, convey your thoughts and your motivations, and consider the story that you're telling overall. This is going to be your college essay and your experience to how you are translating this to your college. And if I could, I'm going to do a quick read for you that will definitely highlight what this looks like in writing. So just relax, a few moments of story time, and then we'll definitely address any of those remaining last questions as we get ready to wrap up our session. Shelves 1 through 5 is the title of this essay. Pushed against the left wall in my room is a curious piece of furniture. Initially, it was a 6-foot tall and 3-foot wide red oak bookcase. Strangely, as the 5 shelves began to fill with books, the dimensions of the bookcase slowly evolved into a looking glass. Now, years later, my reflection is almost complete. Each bookshelf cradles the stories of my life. Shelf 1 is the base, and rightfully so. It contains my building blocks. Among the bright covers in large lettered tiles lie countless fairy tales, fables, and legends. My Indian heritage mixed with my American lifestyle as the spines intertwine from gifts from my father's father to Barnes & Noble bought, creating a cocktail of the morals I grew up on. The heroes in my childhood storybooks were my teachers, driving me to my own heroic actions of enthusiastic community service, whether it was volunteering at the Parks and Recreation Center or serving at the Special Olympics. And it continues on through each shelf of the bookcase, and then ultimately looking to the very top, shelf 5 waits patiently. It is partially filled with an assortment of articles from The Economist, New York Times, Washington Post, all of which highlight my love for the political sciences fostered by the debate team. Alongside those, stacked neatly, are aerospace engineering papers about plasma propulsion, pork chop plots, and Holman transfers. They feature my fascination with physical science and innovation for the future. Countless college brochures scribbled on with notes and reminders complete the first half of this top shelf, and they are the present. Now, standing in the front of a bookcase, I find that I'm completely content. I can see myself with a simple yet comprehensive clarity, like staring into a mirror. Though shelf 5 is unfinished, it is no less hopeful or no less promising than the previous 4. Soon, I will fill this shelf with the ideas that will further define who I am. I will look upon this shelf in the future with a sense of wholeness because I know that this bookshelf is me. So that's just an example of how you can tell your story in a colorful yet individual way to really convey your best self throughout this whole entire process. So you've received lots of information from the beginnings of how to highlight your student involvement, connecting with your admission counselor, hopefully over the past 36 minutes. You have come to know at least 3 admission counselors in the world of higher education. We're humans and we love to connect with you and engage with you through this process and share our wisdom and pass on information to you all. To leave you with just some quick do's and don'ts, if any of you are looking for some of the tacticals, well, should I or should I not? What you should definitely consider is fully addressing the writing prompt, which is a very basic way to round out your essay in your application, is fully address what the question is asking. The story that I just shared with you is most likely from submit your own essay because it's definitely colorful, meaningful, and personal to the writer. You'll definitely want to use your senior level English class writing skills. So yes, what you learn in high school, you will apply in life at some point or another. And you're learning and living that English experience right now currently. So when your teacher is leading you through the writing ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, if you will, put that into play. Definitely write a first draft, revise it, have someone else look over it, check for grammar, sentence structure, all the basics while you are shaping this into your own personal essay. And definitely be yourself. There's no one else like you, which I think is maybe a Dr. Seuss quote, but that's 100% true. Be yourself and don't feel compelled to always talk about the awards and all the shining accolades in your high school experience. Like Derek Doss said earlier, it's okay to talk and write about your shortcomings or your weaknesses. That shows a bit of vulnerability. So definitely consider how you want to incorporate that into your essay. Some things that you should not do is overwrite. Most college applications are available electronically, which all have maybe a preset character or word count limit. So make sure that you're writing within the parameters of what the application is set up to do. And if you have anything that is more extensive than that, I'm sure you can just send that separately to your admission counselor. If you have written a research paper or you've written a newspaper article that you want us to include in your application, you should also be able to just send that separately via email. And then never, ever, ever submit your rough draft. That's the biggest don't in college level writing. Write a first draft, come back, look at it again because it's bound to get better and improve before you actually hit submit or attach it to your application. So at this time, just checking the chat feature here for any questions. It looks like my colleagues have either addressed them or maybe responded privately. There's a question that just came up regarding the proper way to address an admissions counselor by first name or Mr. Derek. Do you want to field that one since that kind of touches on your area?
Sure. I think for an initial conversation, like the email, you know, in my example, I use Miss Brown just to, you know, show as a sign of respect. As in, also, I don't, you know, at that point, I don't know Allyson, you know, but I might get the email, have the meeting, and then she might go, you know, Derek, you can just call me Allyson. Then at that point can change. So I would say on initial contact, you might want to say Mr. Abella, and then he might say, you can call me Peter Paul. Maybe he'll let you pick Peter or Paul, but may have to put them both together. Yeah, I think that would be an important way to start. And I did share up here on the screen so you all have it. I don't know if you want to take a screenshot of it. It's the contact information for each of us. Allyson put this together, added in some emails. So if you have questions about anything particular that we talked about, anything specific to our university, you can definitely reach out to us. As I mentioned, we are your advocate. We work with you. We have other admissions counselors, so we may even get you in touch with a person who is specifically your admissions counselor or get you some information. But we do have just a few minutes. If there are any last questions that come to mind for you all, I think we've got 3 to 4 minutes left here. So we want to make sure to utilize that time if we have it, because we got a strict 45. So we want to go by that so you can make it to your next sessions and continue to learn some great info from our colleagues. All right. We'll give it just another moment here. And then our facilitator, if she wants to be prepared to wrap up, there are a few basic things that CACRAO would like to cover with you. So I believe I need to stop sharing my screen so that she can be prepared to do that. But let me just say thanks. Oh, we got another one. Allyson, this will be you.
Yeah, let me go ahead and take that one. So we got a question that is just asking, is it a good idea to include heritage in the essay? If that is an initial instinct of yours and a part of your identity, absolutely share it. That is a part of your story. We all identify in a multitude of different ways, but if initially that is something that you want to highlight regarding your experience and how you're coming into your own and growing as a young adult, then absolutely share that, elaborate on it. You know, what part of your heritage or identity has been most impactful or reflective for you. So absolutely, if it's an initial, you know, hunch, if you will, and if it's not regarding heritage or identity, if it's anything, if you have really enjoyed being in the math club and you're the president of the math club, you know, why is that experience so special for you? So absolutely, you should definitely consider including that in your essay. Great question.
Last call for questions. Well, let me just say thank you all so much for joining us. Please stick around here for just another minute or so about a few points from our facilitator. But on behalf of myself, Allyson and Peter Paul, we really appreciate your time. We're really excited about this topic, passionate about it, and we were just glad to have you. If you end up watching this later on, for those of you who are watching recording, thanks so much.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions being hosted, so please be sure to sign up for additional sessions at CACRAO.org, CACRAO.org. In about a week, you'll be able to find the sessions recording as well as all of the other session recordings at CACRAO.org. Thank you.